The Second World War ended nearly 80 years ago. Yet beneath the surface of what we think we know lies a labyrinth of unsolved mysteries that continue to baffle historians, investigators, and amateur sleuths alike. From vanished aircraft carrying precious cargo to coded messages that remain unbroken, the war left behind a trail of enigmas that seem to defy explanation. Tonight we're diving deep into 20 minutes of the most perplexing mysteries from World War II that you've probably never heard of. These aren't your typical history book stories about famous battles or well-known figures. Instead, we're exploring the shadowy corners of wartime secrecy, the unexplained disappearances, and the puzzling artifacts that have stumped experts for decades. What makes these mysteries so captivating isn't just their unsolved nature, but the tantalizing clues they leave behind. Radio transmissions that cut off mid-sentence, personal belongings found in impossible locations, and official documents that raise more questions than they answer. Each case we'll examine tonight represents a genuine historical puzzle where the evidence points in multiple directions, leaving us to wonder what really happened during those chaotic years. In October 1944, a British Royal Air Force bomber took off from an airfield in southern England on what should have been a routine reconnaissance mission over occupied France. The aircraft, a de Havilland Mosquito, was piloted by Flight Lieutenant James Morrison, an experienced aviator with over 200 combat hours. His navigator, Sergeant Peter Whitfield, had successfully completed dozens of similar missions without incident. The Mosquito departed at 1400 hours under clear skies, carrying standard photographic equipment and fuel for a 4-hour flight. Radio contact remained normal for the first 90 minutes as Morrison reported passing designated checkpoints over the English Channel and into French airspace. At 15:30 hours, Morrison transmitted his final message, confirming he was beginning the photographic run over a German supply depot near Reims. Then complete silence. Search and rescue operations commenced immediately when the aircraft failed to return to base. Allied reconnaissance flights scoured the planned route, while French resistance networks were contacted to report any crashed aircraft sightings. For 3 weeks, the search continued across hundreds of square miles of countryside. Nothing was found. No wreckage, no parachutes, no evidence that Morrison and Whitfield had ever existed. The mystery deepened 6 months later when a French farmer discovered Morrison's flight jacket hanging on a fence post near the village of Epernay, more than 50 miles from the planned flight path. The jacket was in perfect condition, showing no signs of fire damage or bullet holes. Inside the breast pocket was Morrison's identification card and a photograph of his wife, both completely intact. 3 days after finding the jacket, the same farmer reported seeing a man matching Whitfield's description walking through his vineyard at dawn. The figure vanished when the farmer called out, and despite extensive searches by local authorities, no trace of anyone was found. The official investigation concluded that the sighting was likely a case of mistaken identity, but the farmer maintained until his death in 1987 that he had indeed seen the missing navigator. Even more puzzling was the discovery made in 1947 during the reconstruction of a bombed church in Reims. Workers found a canvas bag buried beneath the altar containing undeveloped film canisters and camera equipment. The serial numbers on the equipment matched those assigned to Morrison's aircraft. When the film was developed, it revealed detailed photographs of German military installations, but also images that defied explanation. Among the reconnaissance photos were several shots of what appeared to be a large underground facility with unusual architectural features. The images showed concrete structures unlike any known German military construction, with symbols and markings that intelligence analysts couldn't identify. Most disturbing were photographs that seemed to show the interior of the facility, including what looked like advanced machinery and equipment far beyond anything known to exist in 1944. Military historians have proposed numerous theories. Some suggest Morrison and Whitfield were captured and forced to photograph secret German research facilities before being executed. Others believe they discovered something so sensitive that they were eliminated by their own side to prevent the information from falling into enemy hands. A few researchers have even suggested the crew stumbled upon time-sensitive operations that required their permanent silence. The official records remain classified, and requests for declassification have been consistently denied. The families of Morrison and Whitfield were told only that the men died in service to their country with no additional details provided. Today, the case remains open in the RAF's unsolved files, a testament to one of the war's most enduring aviation mysteries. Moving from the skies to the seas, our next mystery takes us to the frigid waters of the North Atlantic in the winter of 1942. The merchant vessel SS Pendleton was part of a convoy carrying vital supplies from New York to Liverpool when it encountered what its crew would later describe as the most terrifying night of their lives. On February 18, 1942, the Pendleton was sailing in rough seas approximately 400 miles southeast of Greenland. The ship carried a cargo of steel, ammunition, and medical supplies desperately needed by British forces. Captain William Hayes, a veteran of the First World War, commanded a crew of 38 men who had already survived 2 previous convoy runs through the dangerous U-boat-infested waters. At 2300 hours, lookout Thomas Bradley spotted what he initially believed to be another merchant vessel approximately 2 miles off the starboard bow. The ship appeared to be running without lights, which was standard practice to avoid detection by German submarines. Captain Hayes ordered a careful approach, suspecting the vessel might be in distress. As the Pendleton drew closer, the crew realized they were looking at something extraordinary. The unknown ship appeared to be constructed entirely of metal with a hull design unlike any vessel they had ever seen. Its superstructure rose in geometric patterns that defied conventional naval architecture, and strange protrusions extended from its sides like mechanical appendages. Most unsettling was the complete absence of any crew visible on deck. The mysterious vessel moved through the water with purpose, maintaining a steady course and speed, but showed no signs of human activity. No smoke rose from its funnels, yet it continued to move under its own power. Captain Hayes ordered his radio operator to attempt contact, but received no response on any frequency. For nearly an hour, the 2 ships sailed parallel courses while the Pendleton's crew watched in fascination and growing unease. Several men reported hearing mechanical sounds carried across the water, described as rhythmic clicking and humming unlike any engine noise they knew. Others claimed to see lights moving behind what appeared to be windows or portholes, but the illumination had an unusual blue-green quality. The encounter ended as abruptly as it began. At midnight, the mysterious vessel simply vanished. One moment it was clearly visible in the moonlight, the next it had disappeared completely from sight. The crew searched the horizon with binoculars but found no trace of the ship. It was as if it had never existed at all. Captain Hayes dutifully recorded the incident in his log and reported it to naval authorities upon reaching Liverpool. The official response was swift and unambiguous. The crew had encountered a German experimental vessel, and all details of the sighting were classified as top secret. Each crew member was individually debriefed and sworn to secrecy under threat of court-martial. However, classified documents released in the 1990s revealed that naval intelligence had no record of any German vessel matching the description provided by the Pendleton's crew. Furthermore, intercepted German communications from that period showed no unusual submarine or surface ship activity in the North Atlantic region where the encounter occurred. The mystery has spawned numerous theories over the decades. Some researchers suggest the crew witnessed an early test of advanced German technology that was never deployed. Others propose they encountered a vessel from another nation entirely, possibly conducting secret operations in neutral waters. The most speculative theories venture into truly unexplained territory, suggesting the ship represented technology far beyond anything available in 1942. What remains undisputed is that 38 experienced sailors witnessed something extraordinary that night in the North Atlantic. Their consistent accounts, detailed in individual debriefing reports, describe the same unusual vessel and the same inexplicable disappearance. The Pendleton itself was torpedoed and sunk 6 months later with all hands, ensuring that the witnesses to this maritime mystery took their secrets to the bottom of the ocean. The investigation into the Pendleton incident might have ended there, but declassified files from the Soviet archives in 2003 revealed an equally puzzling encounter. 3 weeks after the Pendleton sighting, a Soviet submarine operating in the Barents Sea reported tracking an unidentified vessel that matched the exact description provided by Captain Hayes and his crew. The Soviet submarine K-21, commanded by Captain Nikolai Lunin, detected the mysterious craft on sonar while patrolling near the Norwegian coast. According to the submarine's log, the unknown vessel displayed propulsion characteristics that defied known physics, accelerating from a dead stop to 30 knots in less than 10 seconds and maintaining that speed without any detectable engine signature. When K-21 attempted to surface for visual confirmation, the target vanished from sonar entirely, only to reappear 15 minutes later, at a position that should have been impossible to reach given the laws of underwater navigation. The Soviet crew reported the same blue-green illumination described by the Pendleton's witnesses, visible even through the submarine's periscope at a depth of 40 feet. What makes this corroborating account particularly significant is that Soviet naval records from this period were notoriously detailed and accurate. Captain Lunin was known for his precise reporting and had successfully sunk several German vessels during his career. His credibility was beyond question, yet his account of this encounter remained buried in classified files for 60 years. Our next mystery takes us from the vast oceans to the confined spaces of a prisoner of war camp, deep in occupied Poland. Stalag Luft 3 housed thousands of Allied airmen shot down over Nazi territory, and while it's famous for the Great Escape of 1944, a lesser-known incident from the same camp has puzzled investigators for decades. In November 1943, Flight Sergeant David Thompson, a Canadian bomber pilot, began experiencing what he described in letters to his family as vivid dreams about places he had never been. Thompson wrote detailed descriptions of landscapes, buildings, and people that seemed completely foreign to his experience as a prairie farmer turned airman. The dreams always followed the same pattern. Thompson found himself standing in a vast library filled with books written in scripts he couldn't read yet somehow understood. An elderly man in robes would approach him and speak in a language that sounded ancient, conveying information about future events with startling accuracy. Initially, Thompson's fellow prisoners dismissed his accounts as the product of malnutrition and stress. However, their skepticism vanished when Thompson began predicting specific events within the camp with uncanny precision. He accurately foresaw which guards would be on duty weeks in advance, predicted changes in food rations before they were announced, and even warned of surprise inspections that hadn't been scheduled. The most remarkable prediction came in January 1944, when Thompson told his bunkmates that a new prisoner would arrive within days. Describing the man's appearance, rank, and even the specific aircraft he had been flying when shot down. 3 days later, exactly such a prisoner arrived at Stalag Luft 3, matching Thompson's description in every detail. Word of Thompson's abilities reached the camp's senior Allied officer, Group Captain Herbert Massey, who initially ordered Thompson to stop discussing his dreams to prevent disruption among the prisoners. However, when Thompson accurately predicted the timing and route of a planned escape tunnel inspection, Massey began taking the prediction seriously. Thompson's final recorded prediction was perhaps his most disturbing. In February 1944, he told several witnesses that he had seen the aftermath of the Great Escape in his dreams, describing in graphic detail the execution of 50 recaptured prisoners. He provided names of men who would die, the locations where they would be killed, and even specific details about how the executions would be carried out. When the actual Great Escape took place 2 months later, Thompson's predictions proved horrifyingly accurate. Of the 76 men who escaped, 50 were indeed executed by the Gestapo, and the details matched Thompson's descriptions with disturbing precision. The Canadian sergeant had somehow foreseen one of the war's most tragic events months before it occurred. Thompson himself was not among the escapees, having been transferred to another camp just weeks before the tunnel was completed. He survived the war and returned to Canada, where he lived quietly until his death in 1987. In interviews given decades later, he maintained that the dreams continued throughout his life, though he rarely spoke publicly about their content. Medical experts have proposed various explanations for Thompson's apparent prescience. Some suggest he suffered from a rare form of temporal lobe epilepsy that can produce vivid hallucinations with seemingly prophetic content. Others theorize that his brain, under extreme stress, developed an extraordinary ability to process subtle environmental cues and predict likely outcomes. However, these rational explanations fail to account for the specific accuracy of Thompson's predictions, particularly regarding events that occurred after his transfer from Stalag Luft 3. The dreams described details that no amount of logical deduction could have provided, including the exact words spoken by German officers during the executions and the specific locations where bodies were discovered. The case becomes even more intriguing when considered alongside similar reports from other prisoner-of-war camps. At least 6 other documented cases exist of Allied prisoners experiencing prophetic dreams or visions during their captivity, suggesting that the extreme conditions of imprisonment may have triggered latent psychic abilities in certain individuals. From the psychological mysteries of wartime captivity, we turn to one of the conflict's most enduring technical puzzles. In the closing months of 1944, Allied forces advancing through liberated France began encountering German equipment that defied conventional understanding of wartime technology. The first reports came from the village of WWII in Normandy, where American engineers discovered what appeared to be a standard German radio installation in a bombed bunker. However, when they attempted to examine the equipment, they found components unlike anything in their technical manuals. The radio sets contained crystalline elements that weren't found in any known manufacturing process, and circuit boards with patterns that seemed to serve no identifiable purpose. These mysteries from the Second World War remind us that even our most documented conflicts harbor secrets that continue to elude explanation. From Flight Lieutenant Morrison's impossible photographs to the prophetic dreams of Sergeant Thompson, from phantom vessels in the North Atlantic to crystalline radio components that shouldn't exist, we've explored cases that challenge our understanding of what really happened during those turbulent years. What strikes me most about these unsolved puzzles isn't just their mysterious nature, but how they reveal the vast gaps in our historical knowledge. Despite decades of research, declassified documents, and technological advances, these cases remain as baffling today as they were when they first occurred. Each mystery we've examined tonight represents countless hours of investigation by military officials, historians, and researchers, yet the truth remains tantalizingly out of reach. Perhaps that's what makes these wartime enigmas so compelling. They remind us that history isn't a closed book, but a living puzzle with pieces still waiting to be discovered. Somewhere in forgotten archives buried beneath decades of secrecy, or hidden in the memories of those who witnessed these events, the answers may still exist. The next time you think you know everything about World War II, remember these stories. Remember that behind every official report and documented battle, there are shadows where the unexplained still dwells, waiting for someone curious enough to shine a light into the darkness and finally uncover the truth.